The television studio was filled with bright lights and quiet excitement as the live charity show began. Rows of people sat closely together watching the stage with smiles and hopeful faces. Cameras moved slowly across the room while soft music played in the background. The host stood at the center of the stage speaking warmly about kindness and giving. Tonight was meant to celebrate good deeds and inspire millions of viewers at home. Among the honored guests sat a well-known charity founder named Martin Hale. He was dressed neatly and carried himself with confidence. Many people believed he was a hero who had changed lives through his work. His name was often seen in newspapers and online stories filled with praise. People trusted him and admired him deeply. For many in the audience he represented hope and generosity. Near the side of the stage stood a police officer named Ben. He was calm and alert with years of experience behind him. At his side sat a trained police dog named Rex. Rex was strong and focused with intelligent eyes that never stopped observing the world around him. Loud sounds, crowds, and flashing lights did not distract him. He had been trained to remain steady in any situation. As the show continued, the host invited Martin to walk on stage to receive a special award. The audience clapped loudly, and some even stood up in respect. Martin smiled and waved as he rose from his seat. He took slow, confident steps toward the stage while cameras followed his movement. Everything appeared perfect and well rehearsed. As Martin moved closer, Rex suddenly lifted his head. His ears stood tall and his body stiffened. Ben noticed the change immediately. He gently tightened his hold on the leash while keeping his expression calm. Rex had reacted this way only during serious moments in the past. The dog took a deep breath and leaned slightly forward. The audience did not notice at first. They were focused on Martin and the applause. The host continued smiling, unaware of what was happening just a few steps away. Rex then released a sharp bark that cut through the noise of the room. The sound echoed across the studio and brought the applause to a sudden stop. People turned their heads in confusion. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a mistake or a playful moment. Martin paused mid-step and looked toward the dog with surprise. His smile stayed on his face, but his eyes shifted quickly. Ben quietly gave Rex a command, hoping he would settle. Rex did not move back. He barked again, louder and more urgent than before. His eyes stayed locked on Martin, and his posture was firm. The dog pulled slightly forward, forcing Ben to step closer. The energy in the room changed instantly. The host stopped speaking, and the music faded away. Martin raised his hands slowly and tried to joke about the situation. His voice sounded light, but his breathing was not steady. He said the dog must be excited by the cameras and lights. A few people laughed again, but the sound was weak and uncertain. Rex did not relax. Security staff near the stage shifted their weight and watched closely. The producer behind the scenes spoke quickly into a headset, unsure of what to do. Millions of viewers at home watched in silence as the unexpected moment unfolded live on screen. Ben trusted Rex more than anything. Years of work had taught him that this behavior meant something important. Rex was trained to react only when he sensed something linked to danger or an active case. Ben took a slow breath and stepped forward. He asked the host calmly to pause the program for safety reasons. The host hesitated but nodded, understanding the seriousness of the request. The cameras stayed on and the audience remained seated, unsure whether they were witnessing an accident or something far more serious. Rex moved closer to Martin and circled him slowly. His nose followed the air around Martin's jacket and hands. The dog barked once more, then suddenly sat down directly in front of him. This was a clear, trained signal. Ben felt a cold weight settle in his chest. A heavy silence filled the studio. Martin took a step back and his smile finally disappeared. He asked what was going on and said there must be a misunderstanding. His voice rose slightly as he spoke faster. He reminded everyone of his charity work and his public image. Ben remained calm and respectful. He explained that Rex was reacting based on training and experience. He said the dog never acted without reason. The words sent a ripple of tension through the audience. People exchanged uneasy looks and some leaned forward in their seats. The host tried to ease the moment, but his voice shook. He asked Ben if there was any real danger. Ben said they needed to perform a simple safety check to be sure. Martin protested and said this was embarrassing and unfair. His hands trembled slightly as he spoke. Rex stayed seated unmoving and focused. His eyes never left Martin. The dog seemed to urge Ben silently to continue. Ben requested permission again, and after a brief pause the host agreed. There was no turning back now. Social media exploded as viewers clipped the moment and shared it instantly. Questions and theories flooded the internet. People who once praised Martin now watched with doubt growing in their minds. The perfect image began to crack. As Ben stepped closer, Rex barked sharply once more. The sound echoed like a warning. The audience held their breath. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone could feel that something hidden was about to surface. The live show meant to celebrate kindness had turned into a moment of raw truth. Whatever Rex had sensed was real and serious. The truth was no longer buried. It was standing under bright lights in front of the entire world. The studio felt colder as Officer Ben stepped closer to Martin with Rex at his side. The bright lights that once felt warm now seemed harsh and exposing. The audience remained silent, as if afraid that even a small sound might change what was about to happen. Martin stood stiff with his hands held close to his body. His confident posture from earlier was gone. Ben spoke in a calm, steady voice and asked Martin to remain still for a brief safety check. Martin nodded slowly, though his jaw was tight. He tried to speak but stopped himself as Rex let out a low warning sound. The dog remained seated but alert like a guard watching a single target. Ben began by asking Martin simple questions about his identity and presence at the event. Martin answered quickly and politely, though his eyes kept moving toward the audience and cameras. Sweat formed along his forehead despite the cool air in the studio. The host stood nearby, unsure whether to intervene or step back. Rex suddenly stood and moved slightly to the side of Martin. His nose traced the air near Martin's jacket and lower back. The dog paused, then barked once sharply and returned to a seated position. Ben recognized the signal immediately and felt a deep sense of concern rise inside him. Ben asked Martin if he was carrying anything that needed to be declared for safety reasons. Martin shook his head and said no with a forced smile. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. The audience could see it clearly on the large screens behind the stage. Security staff quietly moved closer, forming a loose circle around the scene. No one touched Martin yet, but the space around him felt smaller. The producer made the decision to keep the broadcast live, believing the public deserved to see the truth unfold. Millions watched as the moment stretched longer. Ben requested permission to check Martin's jacket and belongings. Martin hesitated, then agreed after a brief pause. He said he had nothing to hide and wanted to clear the misunderstanding. His words sounded practiced but lacked confidence. As Ben reached forward, Rex barked again, louder than before. The sound startled several people in the front row. Rex leaned slightly toward Martin's jacket and froze. Ben stopped moving and looked at Rex closely, trusting his instincts. Ben carefully checked the outside of the jacket and then the inner pocket. His hand paused as he felt something firm and unfamiliar. Martin's breathing grew fast and shallow. His eyes widened and his lips parted as if he wanted to speak but could not. Ben removed a small sealed envelope from the pocket. The studio gasped softly. Martin immediately protested and said it was private paperwork unrelated to the show. His voice cracked as he spoke. Rex remained still but alert, watching every movement. Ben held the envelope up and explained that Rex was trained to detect items linked to ongoing investigations. He said the dog's training was precise and rarely wrong. The host swallowed hard and stepped back, giving Ben space. With permission from the producer, Ben opened the envelope carefully. Inside were documents that clearly did not belong to a charity event. The details were not read aloud, but Ben recognized official markings he had seen before in serious cases. His expression changed as understanding settled in. Ben looked at Martin and asked him to explain why he was carrying those documents. Martin began to speak, but his words tangled and lost shape. He tried to laugh it off and said it was a mistake. His confidence had fully collapsed now. The audience watched as the man they admired stood exposed and uncertain. People who once clapped for him now avoided eye contact. Some shook their heads slowly, unable to process the change. The image of a perfect hero was fading rapidly. Ben informed the host that the situation required further review after the broadcast. He emphasized that no conclusions were being made yet. His voice remained professional and controlled. Rex sat calmly beside him, as if satisfied that the first step had been taken. Martin demanded the cameras be turned off and said this was damaging his reputation. The host responded gently, explaining that the show was live and stopping suddenly would raise more questions. Martin's shoulders slumped as he realized the weight of the moment. Online viewers reacted instantly. Messages of shock, confusion, and disbelief flooded screens everywhere. Old interviews and speeches of Martin were replayed side by side with the current moment. People began questioning past stories that once seemed inspiring. Ben escorted Martin a short distance away from the stage to allow the show to continue safely. Rex walked proudly beside them, focused and steady. The audience parted quietly as they passed. No one spoke. The host returned to the stage and addressed viewers with honesty and care. He said unexpected events sometimes revealed difficult truths. He reminded everyone that trust must be earned and protected. His words felt heavy but sincere. Backstage, Martin sat alone with his head lowered. His public mask was gone, replaced by fear and regret. Ben stood nearby completing reports while Rex lay calmly at his feet. The dog had done his duty without emotion or judgment. As the broadcast continued, viewers understood they had witnessed something rare and real. A single moment had changed everything. The truth had not fully surfaced yet, but the door was now open. Rex lifted his head and looked toward Ben quietly. Ben met his gaze and nodded softly. This was only the beginning. Much more was about to come to light. The backstage area felt quiet and heavy after the cameras turned away from Martin. The noise of the studio faded into distant echoes. Martin sat alone on a chair with his head lowered and his hands clasped tightly together. The confident man the world once admired seemed far away now. His breathing was slow but uneven. Officer Ben stood nearby, reviewing the documents carefully. His face showed focus rather than anger. Rex rested at his feet, calm and alert as always. The dog had completed his task and now waited patiently. The bond between Ben and Rex was built on trust and long experience. Martin finally lifted his head and looked at Ben. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. He asked quietly how a dog could undo years of careful work in just a few minutes. His voice carried no pride now, only exhaustion. Ben answered gently and said that truth has a way of finding light even in the darkest places. He explained that Rex was trained to notice patterns and signals humans often missed. Martin listened without interrupting. His shoulders slowly sank as the weight of reality pressed down on him. Security staff returned and informed Ben that investigators were on their way. The documents found in Martin's jacket had raised serious questions. No accusations were made yet, but the need for clarity was clear. Martin nodded slowly, accepting that there was no escape from what was coming. As they waited, Martin began to speak about his past. He talked about how his charity started with good intentions. Over time, pressure, expectations, and fear of failure had changed him. He admitted he made choices he thought he could control. Now those choices were standing in front of him. Ben listened without judgment. He had heard many stories like this before. Power and praise often blinded people until consequences arrived. Rex lifted his head slightly, as if listening too. The room remained quiet and respectful. Outside the studio, the public reaction continued to grow. News channels replayed the moment again and again. Viewers debated what it meant and what might come next. Some felt betrayed while others waited for full facts. The story had become bigger than anyone expected. Back in the studio, the host continued the program with care and honesty. He spoke about accountability and responsibility. He reminded viewers that real kindness required transparency. His words resonated deeply with the audience. Investigators arrived quietly and spoke with Ben. They examined the documents and confirmed they were linked to a long-running case. The case involved missing funds and hidden actions that had never been proven before. Rex had unknowingly connected the final piece. Martin was informed he would need to cooperate fully. He did not resist. His face showed relief mixed with fear. Carrying secrets for so long had clearly worn him down. He stood slowly and followed the investigators without protest. As Martin walked away, he glanced once more at Rex. There was no anger in his eyes, only understanding. He whispered that maybe this was meant to happen. Rex remained still, watching calmly. Ben placed a hand gently on Rex's back. He felt proud but not triumphant. This was not about victory but about truth. Rex had done what he was trained to do, nothing more and nothing less. Later that night, Ben returned home with Rex. The city lights passed quietly outside the car window. Ben reflected on the events of the day. He knew this moment would be remembered for years. A simple act had revealed a hidden reality. At home, Ben prepared Rex's meal and sat beside him. Rex ate calmly, unaware of the impact he had made. To him, it was just another job completed. Ben smiled softly and scratched behind Rex's ears. The world outside continued to react. Discussions about trust, leadership, and responsibility filled conversations everywhere. Many people reconsidered who they admired and why. The event became a lesson shared across generations. Ben received a message thanking him for his professionalism. He set the phone aside, knowing praise was not the goal. What mattered was that the truth had been protected. Rex lay down nearby, resting peacefully. As the night grew quiet, Ben looked at Rex and spoke softly. He said, "Sometimes doing the right thing changes lives forever." Rex lifted his head briefly, then closed his eyes again. The truth had not ended the story, but it had begun a new chapter. Tomorrow would bring answers, consequences, and healing. For now, the world paused, reflecting on what had been revealed. Morning arrived quietly after the long night that followed the live broadcast. Sunlight moved gently through the city as people woke up, still talking about what they had seen. News channels replayed the moment again and again. The image of Rex barking on stage had become unforgettable. What began as a charity event had turned into a lesson the world would not forget. Martin sat in a quiet room at an investigation center. The walls were plain and the air felt still. He no longer looked like a public figure. He looked like a tired man facing the weight of his choices. Across the table sat officials asking calm and careful questions. Martin answered slowly and honestly. There was no performance left in him. He spoke about how things slowly changed over the years. He explained how fear of losing respect pushed him to hide mistakes. Each hidden choice led to another. He admitted that he once believed he could fix everything before anyone noticed. Now he understood that truth does not wait forever. The investigation moved forward steadily. Records were checked and stories were compared. What had once been rumors now had proof. Martin cooperated fully, knowing resistance would only deepen the damage. He accepted responsibility without anger. For the first time in years, he felt a strange sense of relief. Meanwhile, Officer Ben returned to work like any other day. He did not seek attention or praise. He followed his routine with quiet focus. Rex stayed close, always alert and calm. To them, life continued forward, one step at a time. Ben was called into a briefing where senior officers thanked him for his professionalism. They praised Rex for his training and discipline. Ben nodded politely and kept his responses short. He knew the real reward was trust in the system doing its job. Public reaction continued to evolve. Some people felt disappointment while others felt gratitude. Many praised the honesty of allowing the truth to unfold live. Discussions about integrity filled homes, schools, and workplaces. The story became more than one man's fall. It became a reminder. The charity organization announced changes and promised transparency. New leadership stepped forward with clear rules and open records. Volunteers returned slowly with cautious hope. People wanted to believe again, but with wiser eyes. Ben was invited to speak at a small community event. He stood on a simple stage with Rex beside him. He spoke about responsibility and the role of trust. He said that no one is above truth. The audience listened quietly and nodded. Rex sat calmly, enjoying the attention from children. Afterward, they gently patted his head and smiled. To them he was a hero. Rex accepted the affection without understanding the title. He was simply being himself. Martin later released a short statement. He did not defend himself or shift blame. He apologized and acknowledged the harm caused. The message was simple and direct. Some accepted it while others remained silent. Healing would take time. As weeks passed, the world slowly moved on. New stories filled the news. Yet the moment on live television remained in memory. It was referenced when people spoke about honesty and courage. A single bark had changed everything. One evening Ben walked Rex through a quiet park. The sky was painted with soft colors as the sun set. Ben reflected on how unexpected moments shape lives. He realized that doing the right thing is not always loud or planned. Sometimes it arrives without warning. Ben stopped and knelt beside Rex. He looked into the dog's eyes and smiled. He thanked Rex softly for his loyalty and instinct. Rex wagged his tail gently and leaned closer. The park remained peaceful as the city lights began to glow. Life continued forward, carrying lessons learned. Truth had found its voice through an unlikely hero, and the world was better for it. The story did not end with applause or celebration. It ended with understanding and reflection. In that quiet ending there was hope.